Welcome to the Mailbag edition of the Southeastern 14 podcast, joined by Blake Lovell, Max Barr, and even Oreo. If you're watching, you can see him in the background. He'll probably arise from his snooze and chime in at some point as he usually does. A reminder, our mailbag is presented by friends at BetOnline with the NFL playoffs right around the corner and the NBA season in full swing. BetOnline has you covered with all the up-to-the-second odds, news, and scores. With additional odds, lines, trends, and info on both desktop and mobile, you can access the world's best wagering information anytime. Head there today to get in on the action, see the updated odds. Remember to use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to get your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online where the game starts. All right, Blake, we're doing the mailbag blindly for most of us. You've seen the questions, I think. We mostly have not. Let's get it started.
Okay. I don't remember half the questions because we just went through and pulled them up here. But hey, let's get going.
Hey, Dave.
Dave gives us the most intimidating question we've had to this point in the mailbag. He asks, who is the one player on every SEC team they could not afford to lose? All right, so I think we should reshape this question. Because, I mean, I feel like this is, you could essentially just pick the best player on every team, right?
Yeah.
So what if we reshaped? You have a different opinion, Chris?
In some cases, I mean, sometimes the answer is the best player. Sometimes the answer is that the guy that does things that you can't easily replace. And I've got one team in mind. You may have the same team in mind too. We'll get to that later, but carry on.
Well, no, then this is gonna be your exercise because I would probably just pick the best player on every team, which is just a terrible cop-out answer, but like I probably would. So we're just gonna make this your exercise. So
okay,
let's start with Auburn.
I was gonna. We can do that, or we just go alphabetically.
No, we're not going alphabetical order. We're starting with Auburn.
We're okay. Well, okay, and Auburn, I think the answer is the best
messing
player.
You up because I knew you wanted to go alphabetical order, but we're going KenPom order. Forget it.
There are other reasons for this too. And if you watch the preview video, you'll know. I think it's Johni Broome. I mean, he is their best player, but I don't know how you replace that.
Alabama.
Are you guys not going to answer?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I want Chris to rapid fire. I want
rapid fire. This because Chris, this is going to be the longest mailbag in the history of mailbag.
Okay, I'll give you my selection. You tell me if you agree or disagree. Johni Broome, Auburn.
I would say Jalen
player on the team. All right. Oh wow. Okay. Well, this may take an hour. I may not chime in just to let you guys do this one. Alabama.
Best player is Mark Sears. Grant Nelson might be the guy. And I know he hasn't been always the Grant Nelson they wanted, but he might be the guy that's most difficult to replace if they lost.
You're overthinking this, Chris. How could they possibly replace Mark Sears based on what he's done this season? No chance.
I mean, you've got Aaron Estrada.
Chris.
You've got other guys that can
Chris. Chris.
I've overthought it.
You are overthinking this one big time. Like, I have nothing against Aaron Estrada, but look at the numbers Mark Sears has put up. And you're telling me that anybody else on that team is going to put up those same numbers?
The kid does have a true shooting percentage of 71%, and he's scoring almost 26 points per 70 possessions. Nobody else on the team's doing that. He's got an assist to turnover rate of almost 2. Yeah, okay. I was wrong.
Next team.
I was trying to make it interesting, and you just torpedoed me right away.
Everyone off the island except for one person. Like, this feels unfair.
Are you saying I've already been voted off the island?
Well, no. I mean, in terms of picking on the teams, like I feel like we're having to play favorites here. I don't know. I'm withholding answers the rest of the way. Kentucky.
Go ahead, Chris. Shepard. Okay, thank you, Shepard.
Georgia.
Noah Thomason.
Probably. Jabri Abdur-Rahim would be in the conversation.
LSU.
Jalen Cook.
Tennessee.
Zakai Ziegler. That's the team I had in mind when I said best player and most irreplaceable. It may not be the same because we saw it last year.
Ziegler.
I think you could argue he's the best player on the team.
You could argue Josiah Jordan-James. You could all argue Dalton Connect because he gave them that thing they need. I mean, James is so versatile, but I think the answer, my gut feeling was Ziegler. I think that's the one I'd stick with.
All right. Mississippi State.
I think that
That one's
easy
obvious.
too.
Yeah.
Toulouse Smith.
Yeah, I think that's the most obvious one.
Josh Hubbard's got an argument because that's a dimension they don't really have, but it's Toulouse Smith.
Yeah.
South Carolina.
Ooh.
Michi?
I'm saying Talon Cooper. I think he runs that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think he opens up everything in that offense.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think he's the main reason they're so much better.
Yeah.
He's so efficient.
Ole Miss.
I got my answer.
Share it, Max.
The problem
Morrell.
is, okay. I mean, I was thinking maybe Jamarian Sharp because nobody, well, I mean, but they've also got Cisse, and they split time anyway. That's tough. I mean, Alan Flanagan.
Got to pick one here. Everybody else voted off. One player
I'll go Morrell.
gets to stay.
Okay.
All right. Texas A&M. Oh, this is an easy one.
Yeah, it's the easiest one there is.
He's not having a good season, but it's Wade Taylor.
It's got to be Wade Taylor.
Alabama.
We thought we already did Alabama.
Well, we did. I want to see if Chris changes answer.
What is wrong with you?
Florida.
It's Mark Sears because I'm going to get voted off the island otherwise, and also because it's Mark Sears.
What do you got for Florida?
That one's tough. Probably Zion Pullen.
That's a great answer. It's mine too.
Ooh.
It could be Tyrese Samuel. There's a lot of guys.
Arkansas.
Blake, are you not going to make picks, or are you just going to throw stones?
No, because I'm
of
sorry. Like this will be the longest mailbag in history if we all make picks. So I am just throwing it to you guys. And if I have a strong disagreement like I did with one in particular, I will let you know.
Arkansas, I'm going to say Tremont Mark just because they've been running everything through him.
Cade Applegast. They're all replaceable at this point.
My goodness, Chris. Boy, Arkansas.
I broke up
quite
with
a turn.
Arkansas.
Arkansas.
No,
fans.
serious answer would be Tremont Mark. That's pretty easy.
Missouri.
Sean East.
Vanderbilt.
Oh, easy. Ezra Mannion.
Yeah.
Okay. Dave, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, on to the next one. It is SEC Unfiltered. Chris Phillips is Arkansas. Boy, this is the Chris Lee mailbag is what this is. We're just like turning this over to Chris for him just to rant about this and that. Here we go. SEC Unfiltered. Is Arkansas officially donezo?
Arkansas, I'm so done with you. Need to send me flowers. You need to send me candy. You need to show up at my doorstep with a boombox over your head.
This is out of control.
That's where we are.
This is just.
I don't think they're donezo. I mean, if they go to Florida and get a win, they get 2 winnable games at home and could turn the thing around. I mean, they've got the talent. It's just not clicked yet. Close to donezo, yes, but I'm not kicking them all the way out just yet.
Look at Max, the voice of reason here. I don't think they're officially done yet. So we'll see. Long season, still time, but yeah, it's been rough. All right, next up. Jordan Harper, noted Alabama guy. Hello all. Love the show. Minus Chris. What are your thoughts on the strength of scheduling differences and how they affect team performances in conference? For example, Alabama scheduling difficult and losing several compared to South Carolina scheduling light, being 13-1. I think it absolutely makes a difference because we've seen Alabama be one of the teams that scheduled the toughest over the past however many years now. And it seems like it's always made a difference. Even though Alabama's been very talented, it's right. I mean, it's always Alabama. Like, we're ranking non-conference schedules. Alabama's always near the top, if not at the top, since Nate Oates has been there. I mean, I feel like even before that, they played some tough non-conference schedules during the Avery Johnson years. So I think it absolutely matters, because that's the whole point, right? This isn't football where losing a game, you have to be terrified if you lose a game, right? If you lose a game, so what if it's against a good team? And again, where's Alabama at in my beloved net rankings right now? They're in the top 5. So they have 5 losses and they're in the top 5. Ken Palm loves them. The computers love them. So I don't know why any team wouldn't schedule strong at this point, because all it does is benefit you, unless you're in a situation where you go 0-12. But if you think you have the kind of team that can be competitive against similar teams or better teams, you should schedule those all day, every day. Now, I know there's going to be the pushback of, the major teams can't get games and all that. And I hate that. Like, it's unfortunate, but every team has to look out for their own interests, basically, right? Like, to a certain extent. You're not going to play every game against top 10 teams in the non-conference. You're not going to go out and schedule 1 through 10. But if you can put a good group like Alabama has seemingly every year in there, then yeah, it's going to make a difference once you get into conference play, because you're prepared for these kind of games. So,
Yeah, I mean, look at Tennessee also. Same thing. Computers absolutely love them because they scheduled so hard. I also think it's a little bit of like where the program is at. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at teams that are kind of just getting started with their culture, like South Carolina, Ole Miss. You kind of want to use that non-conference just to kind of get the ball rolling a little bit. And whereas you look at teams that are, coaches that have been there for a while and have implemented everything and have the guys they want, Alabama, Tennessee. I thought Auburn maybe could have scheduled a little bit harder, but some of the games that normally would be hard games, those teams are having a little bit of down years. Virginia Tech, Indiana, USC. So normally those are bigger games in previous years. So it's a little bit of where the program's at also. But I mean, it just, like you said, Blake, it helps out so much with the computers and how the net looks at you.
I love the examples Jordan picked, because I don't know that you could have picked 2 better ones in the league. I was at media days in the room when Nate Oates spoke, and you could tell he knew he had a good team. Now, the Lamont Paris, I think, felt that way too, but Nate knew it, and it was just like, how good is this team? So he goes out and schedules road games at Creighton and Purdue on a neutral court, and Arizona away from Tuscaloosa, and what he found out was that his team was pretty good, maybe not elite except for the computers, because it lost to all those elite teams. But it's not going to hurt Alabama come Selection Sunday unless Alabama goes 7-11 in the league or something like that, which isn't going to happen, and just lose too many to get in. The net loves Alabama. I remember Bryce Drew's Vanderbilt team a few years ago. They were, I don't know, 19-16 or something like that, but played a brutal schedule. Alabama's going to get the same pass on Selection Sunday as long as it wins enough games. South Carolina, Lamont Paris just didn't know how good his team was. If he plays Alabama's schedule, maybe they get crushed. Maybe they lose their confidence. You don't know how season's going to go. Sometimes you just need to wean a team along and let it believe in itself. And Lamont did that enough. They got I guess they lost to Clemson, but they got enough wins that they've been in brackets, and that team's a lot better than everybody thought. So I think you scheduled your situation, and those are 2 great examples of coaches, I think, that did it well.
all right. Thanks, Jordan. On to the next one. Nick asks, how much pressure on Todd Golden to make the NCAAs this year? I would think there's pressure, because they didn't hire him to not make the NCAA tournament, and they had a disappointing start last year in terms of, year 1. And now you got off to a 10-3 start this year. You're 0-2 in SEC play. It's what we talked about in the prediction video. Big game against Arkansas. I think there is pressure. I think these days, especially programs like Florida, there's pressure every year, because this isn't what it used to be, where, all right, we hired Todd Golden. It'll take him 3 years to keep the same roster, and once those guys develop, they'll be great in 3 years. Not the way it works anymore. You can flip your roster every offseason, so the expectation is that you are going to get there. And remember, they hired him to replace someone who they were not happy with making the NCAA tournament. That wasn't just enough just to make the tournament, which Mike White did how many years there? Let me look at it. He did it in 2021, 2019, 2018, 2017. So he did it in 4 of his 7 seasons there. They made the Elite Eight once. That was 2017. Got to the round. But yeah, so yeah, I would say there's definitely pressure.
Yeah, I mean that pretty much wraps it up. I mean, I don't really know what to add. You have a ton of pressure on you. What were the I don't know the exact team transfer portal ratings, but Florida was way up there, crushed the portal. There was so much hype around this team coming in. The shooting, the hot pick for Conference Player of the Year was Riley Kugel. That was everybody's kind of trendy pick. And yeah, I mean, but listen, it's not time to panic. I mean, you come a possession away from beating Kentucky. I mean, Aaron Bradshaw misses a 3 and you probably win the game. So definitely a lot of pressure, but I don't like the extreme panic, that's coming on right now. There's still so much time to right this ship.
Yeah, you guys said it well. I have nothing to add here.
All right, on to Sam, Tennessee fan. Did we get our March preview of the Fighting Rick Barneses? Tennessee has played 4 good bigs and lost all 4 games. Have we found what's going to send them home? Well, I mean, it's not a bad point. You look at the common denominator between those 4 teams: Purdue, Kansas, North Carolina, Mississippi State. They've got elite big men, right? I mean, they've all got guys that are at the top of their position in terms of just how they play. And so maybe, and that's why we always say, it's every year we say the same thing. And it just seems like Tennessee has been on the wrong end of that, but it's all about matchups and teams that can exploit your weaknesses. And that's why the bracket is so important. That's why I always find it so silly when everybody's like, here's my final 4 picks in December. Great. Who are they playing to get to the final 4? So we don't have any idea. So if Tennessee were to get a draw where they don't play any, huge big men based on the trend we've seen at this point, I'd feel really great about Tennessee's chances. But it is a good point that what if they do? And do they see, some of those guys exploit some of those weaknesses, whether it's getting an ADU in foul trouble, whether it's getting other guys. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair point. We'll see.
Zach Edey, 23-10. Hunter Dickinson, 17-20. Armando Bacot, 22-11. Tolu Smith, 23, and he only had 4 rebounds, but still 23 points. So I mean, yeah, if there's any weakness in this team, it's defending a back to the basket offensive big that has a bunch of physicality. So if they do go down, I think that's what's gonna be. Perimeter defense has held fairly strong, except for a Josh Hubbard explosion. I mean, yeah, you look down the road, and if the team doesn't have a great big, you like the matchup. If they do, you're like, well, geez, we've seen Tennessee struggle with this. So I think it's a great question. I think, yeah, if you come up on a neutral floor and you got a huge imposing big that has an offensive tool set, it's going to be challenging. So I think it's a great question, and yeah, it's definitely something they have to improve on.
Yeah, that's a terrific question. I hadn't really given it any thought till just now. I would push back on the question a little bit, saying they didn't play 4 good bigs. They played 4 great bigs.
Yes.
And I was just thinking off the top of my head, if you started naming top big men in the country that Tennessee hasn't played, I mean, I guess it's Ryan Kalkbrenner at Creighton, Kyle Filipowski at Duke. But I mean, other than that, you say top 6 or 7 big men in the country, they played most of them. I don't know how you rank Tolu Smith because he didn't come in healthy, but we know he's not in that very top list with Edey and those guys, but he's as good as anybody else in the country. So I would say, yeah, if you play elite big men, you might be in trouble. But I mean, you've checked the bingo card of great big men, except for those guys for the most part.
It's a good point, Chris.
All right. Thanks, Sam. On to Eli's question here. What's Mississippi State's ceiling and what should be expected in the next 5-game stretch? Alabama at Kentucky, Vandy at Florida against Auburn. Yeah, we brought up the Mississippi State thing and why it was huge for them to beat Tennessee because first half of the schedule for a second straight year seemingly just not great for Mississippi State in terms of just tough. I mean, it's just a brutal stretch of games. And yeah, I think at least when you look at this point, Ken Palm has them as the third toughest schedule in the league. South Carolina's 1, Ole Miss 2, for what it's worth. But yeah, I mean, I think Mississippi State's ceiling is now that they've got Toulouse Smith back. I mean, I think it's a top. I think they're good enough to be a top 6, 7 seed in the NCAA tournament because I think the schedule is going to keep them up there numbers wise. Now the problem is it's like last year where you really don't put yourself in a situation where you start 1-7 or something because you need to win some of those games. But that was one of the things that helped them out a little bit last year was the schedule. They did play kind of a tough road and they played some, they had 2 games against Alabama last year. They had 2 games against Tennessee, all those kind of things. So I think if you look at it from that standpoint, just having this upcoming schedule is good for them because it's going to improve their overall numbers and resume, but you got to win some of them. And they just beat Tennessee. So that's a great start. So yeah, I think Mississippi State can totally be a top 6, 7 team. And I think they can, certainly be a team that finishes in the top 5 in the SEC without hesitation if they're able to capitalize on some of these games. So
yeah, I mean, Toulouse Smith was first team all SEC last year and he looks even better. And we don't even know if he's at 100%. So, that holds significance in its own. The part about what should be expected in this next 5-game stretch, I think you got to count that Vanderbilt win that Vanderbilt home game as a win. You got to win that game. So it really comes down to you got Alabama and Auburn at home, and you got Kentucky and Florida on the road. I think you got to go 2-2, and you're sitting pretty good. You're going to have multiple quality wins and just keep getting better as Toulouse Smith gets his game conditioning more and more. He was pretty gassed against Tennessee, but that problem's going to get fixed as he plays more. So, yeah, I mean, huge opportunity ahead, and it's kind of going to set the standard for okay, is this team going to be another 9 to 11 seed, or do they have a really good chance at getting a single digit seed here and maybe making a little bit of a run? I'm optimistic.
Yeah. I think the little answer to this question is get 2 out of 5. Vandy's very gettable. If State doesn't get that one, then you might, I'm not going to say you hit the panic button, but you got some issues because of those other games. I think you can get either Alabama or Auburn at home or maybe pull a road upset. You get 2 of those 5, you're okay. Now, here's the problem, and then I'll tell you the silver lining after that. I think Zach's question fell short by a couple of games because after that you go to Ole Miss and you go to Alabama. So that is a brutal 7-game stretch.
Sorry to interrupt you, Chris. Did you just say Zach?
Thanks, Zach Wilson. Jets quarterback chiming in here. Zach Wilson, apparently, everyone wants to be part of the Southeastern 14 SEC Basketball Mailbag.
I call him Zach.
New York Jets quarterback Zach Wilson. But please continue on, Chris.
My love for Auburn is affecting my brain and my judgment here. But yeah, but here's the backside of the schedule. I go down this and I say, who can they not beat? Georgia at home, Missouri away, Arkansas home, Ole Miss home, LSU away, Kentucky home, Auburn away, A&M away, South Carolina home. The only one in that's I'm not going to call Auburn unwinnable, but it's maybe close to it. Every other game on that schedule, they're either going to be favored in to win or pretty close. And so I think you just try to survive the next 7. If you get 3 of them, I think you feel pretty good because I think the team's good enough to navigate the back half very well. Eli, and I'll call you by your name this time, and my apologies.
Boy, hopefully the next question is about Auburn. All right, on to this one. Nope, it's from Ed. Oh boy, Ed, my goodness, you're about to set off Mr. Lee over here again. Ed asked, do you think Arkansas has a talent problem or a chemistry problem? Maybe the guys don't maybe there are guys that don't understand the system yet. Chris, just go ahead, man. I'm gonna sit back and I got
Take
a
this
couple
day.
things to
Yeah.
do.
Well, hey, we went through this in the predictions. When a team, and I know this from covering teams, when a team is so far off, the discrepancy between what that team has and its performance is almost always something in chemistry. Not buying into coaching. Players in the locker room hate each other. I don't know what Arkansas's problem is, but you can usually spot that 1,000 miles away. And there's something that's got to be going on. But I don't think it's don't understand the system. I will say if it's that, this is right about the time Eric Musselman's teams start to click in and play better. So I'll give you, in all the universe of possibilities, maybe that's something. But I watched that coach speak after games, and I don't think it's an understand the system problem based on his body language and his words.
I think Chris answered it perfectly. I don't have anything to add.
Not a talent problem. That's for sure.
Not a talent problem.
All right, on to this one. I will take this one. Christian, he wants to know, do I think E.F. Watson should be a good candidate to replace Nick Saban? Now, this is a deep cut here because there are only a few of those out there who know who E.F. Watson is. E.F. Watson, a legendary College Hoops 2K8 on the PlayStation 3 recruit that yours truly had when during the 2020 era in the world, we all had to, sit around and do certain things. And so I fired up the college basketball game from a good, 15 years ago, whatever now. And we played a season. We had a franchise going. All right. And we did a fan vote. It came down, there were 4 teams. It was Alabama. Oh, here we go. Alabama, Auburn, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt were the 4 teams that made the Final Four in terms of the fan vote. Alabama won. So we started playing a season with Alabama. I'd like everyone to know we got off to a great start. We just demolished Duke. The Blue Devils had no answer for John Petty and his 3-point shooting. But E.F. Watson was going to be our prize recruit going into the second season. He was, I don't know what he was, 6'11", 5-star. He could shoot threes. He was a tremendous talent. Unfortunately, we stopped playing that. And so we didn't get to see E.F. Watson's true skills on display. So do I think he'd be a good candidate to replace Nick Saban? You bet I would. And as I told Christian, we got some ideas. The new EA Sports games coming out this year. So we got some ideas on some stuff we're going to have some fun with on that. So may not just be basketball, may get some football action involved. And who knows? We may get Zach Wilson quarterbacking one of those teams. We'll find out. Anyways, E.F. Watson, a legend in everyone's hearts. All right, let's go to the next one.
And then you became a father, and all of your free time went away.
Well, we didn't get to play as many games. I will say that. John Petty 3-point shooting started to go down a little bit, and it just we didn't even get to SEC action, but we dominated the non-con, and we scheduled very tough. We were very high in the computers from what I remember. So the net had us way up there. All right, I don't even remember what the next one. Oh yeah, here it is. Official Hurt Life Rick wants to know, do you think LSU can finish in the top half of the SEC? They seem to continue to get better. This is an interesting question because they're there right now. They're 2-0, and I start to look down their schedule, though. I think there are some potential bumps in the road coming up here soon because here is their upcoming schedule, and we talk about schedules and difficulty. Yikes. This is a yikes for me when I look at their schedule. At Auburn, home against Ole Miss, home against A&M, which is not perhaps the yikes that we thought it would be. At Georgia, at Alabama, home against Arkansas, maybe not as bad either. At Tennessee, home against Alabama, at Florida, at South Carolina, home against Kentucky, home against Mississippi State. That's a pretty tough, even though you get some home games in there, that still the competition is pretty interesting here. So can they make the top half? If they do, man, they're going to have to beat some pretty good teams that are ahead of them right now to do it. But it's an interesting question. I just think their schedule is really tough.
I think it's a work in progress because we're continuing to see this team get better and better, and the non-conference numbers are a bit confusing, because they didn't have Jalen Cook like we've said, but. If you just go by the Ken Pom game projections, that month of February, like you said, is just going to be brutal. And the tough part about it is that you get tough games at home. It's not like you're getting, LSU and Vandy, or not LSU. It's not like you're getting Vandy and maybe a reeling Missouri team at home where you can really just kind of bank on a win. These home games, I mean, Ole Miss and A&M, Arkansas, Alabama, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Georgia, and then you get Missouri the last one. Almost all these home games are against like top half teams currently. So it's a really tough schedule down the stretch, but at the same time, you have to understand that this team is getting better game by game.
I'm higher on LSU than I was a couple weeks ago as I watched Jalen Cook get back and play better. And I've kind of reevaluated them a little bit. I watched that A&M game. I didn't expect in a million years they'd go into there and win, and they won that game. And some of that had to do with A&M couldn't shoot. But let's give LSU credit. But I think you guys nailed it. You look at the schedule. Ken Palm's got them going 8-10. I don't know how they get there. That's of course they banked 2 wins. I guess that's part of it. So you've only got to get 6 more, but that's just going to be a tough ask. Top half I think is a steep ask. But if Matt McMahon gets there, then you got to feel great about where this program's headed at that point.
All right. Little did I know how fitting this mailbag number 10 question would be to wrap up this week's edition.
Oh, boy.
Little did I know how perfect this would be based on the 2 videos we have recorded today. But it comes from the one and only Gene on Twitter.
I know
who wants to know, because you're going to hear some Chris, I don't know what Chris can be doing over there. Gene wants to know who finishes second in the league behind Auburn.
I'm muting myself. Chris, you go.
It's embarrassing.
I'm so blinded by my love for Auburn right now that it's hard to see straight. But probably Tennessee. It's Kentucky, Tennessee, Auburn. I don't statistically Kentucky's just not played defense to an elite level, and just with the younger players, you've seen some lapses in performance. Tennessee's older, more mature. So, yeah, I mean, we've already given Auburn the league, I think. So Tennessee would be number 2.
Well, I mean,
and for people that have not watched the other videos, that's kind of said tongue in cheek. We're having some fun with this. I do think to me, it's most likely an Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky race. You pick your order.
Yeah, I mean, we got I mean, I love our listeners. They are passionate. But boy, when we released our power rankings, the difference between 1 and 3 in our minds was like this much, and the difference between 1 and 3 in our viewers' minds, I can't even reach my arms that wide. So it's just like, you got to understand the Auburn, Kentucky, and Tennessee right now, in my mind, still are separated by like the thinnest of margins. So I think if Auburn is going to win the league, I think you have Kentucky and Tennessee barking on, knocking on that door right next to them. But also we have Alabama, who's starting to play really well. So I think it's a conversation of about 3 to 4 teams right now.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. Yeah, Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn, 1A, 1B, 1C. But we'll see how they are in our power rankings next week, because one team's already lost to this point. So We'll find out what happens. But there you go. Mailbag. Jeez. Another one in the books.
I can't believe we got to the end of the mailbag in under 35 minutes. That's an upset around here.
I can't believe we got to the end of the first question in under 35 minutes, to be honest with you. But we did. Do you want to go back and talk about, you want to go Alabama? Let's circle back around on that one.
Marty, Bobby, you guys got anything to add here?
Zach Wilson, Robert Saleh, Aaron, like anyone? Yeah.
What a mess.
Jeez.
We
have fun with these. We really do.
All right. Please hit subscribe. We are begging you after this. Like, I know you don't want to, but please hit the subscribe button. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. For Blake and Max, Oreo never... He is on his back out behind me. We didn't hear a peep from him today. That's
something in the air today. There's something in the air.
All right. Thank you for watching. We are Southeastern 14, presented by Bet Online.